today what we're going to do is talk about the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. We don't have a lot of time, so we're only going to go over 5 of them. Have you ever worked for someone that has the title but does not have the leadership skills? And we're not talking about here at ASA, right? Have you ever worked for someone like that? Now, have you ever worked with someone that had the leadership skills but not the title? So just because you do not have that title, whether you do or don't, doesn't mean that you're a leader. Just because you do not have the title doesn't mean that you're not a leader. And that's one of the things that a lot of people, especially in today's society, have a hard time understanding. That you are able to step out and be a leader, whether you have that title or not. And we can look at in your home, in your community, at your church, at your kid's school. There's so many different places where you can step out and be a leader. It doesn't necessarily have to, as we talk, it doesn't necessarily have to be at ASA. It can be outside in your outside life, because we're not here at ASA 24 hours, right? Well, some of you might be. But for the most part, you have other responsibilities outside of here. And those are places where you can step out and be leaders as well. Any questions about that? Anybody want to challenge me? Not yet? I got I heard a Was that you? No. Oh, now you want to look behind you? I heard But also leadership is influence. You only can lead as many people as you have influence over. What are some things that you think of when I say influence? Sometimes you can think about you're at home with kids.
Respect.
Respect. Yes, without respect, people aren't going to follow you. It's hard to lead people without that respect. What else with influence?
Credibility.
Credibility. Well, you're being a leader in here. I like you, Stacy. But influence is very important, because if you don't have that influence, you don't have other people following you. So being able to have that influence. Also, the other thing about leadership that's very important is that it's teachable. There's times that, some people may be born with that leadership ability, but it can be taught. And that's why Skylight Leadership does what we do. That's why we're able to be in business, because we know that it can be taught and people are buying into that. All right, so now let's get into these laws. Law of the lid. Now, law of the lid basically says that your leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. What I mean by that is, if you are leading a team and your leadership ability or your lid is, let's say, average at a 7, your team's not going to get beyond that 6. Does that make sense? So as where the leadership is of the team, that's about as far as you're going to get. Now, like I said, leadership is teachable, so you can continue to raise that lid, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I'll give you another example of it. Any sports fans in here? Okay, who do you like? Who's your favorite team?
Bears.
The Bears. What about you? Chicago Cubs. Anyone else? What's their leadership like on those two teams? So if you look at the season, what do you think about it?
Very strong with the Bears this year.
This year? Very strong? What were you going to say?
I said Joe.
But even when you look at sports teams, you can see where that leadership is. And we're talking about at the most professional level. These people are making millions of dollars just to play football or baseball or basketball, to play their sport. So that's the best of the best, right? So why would there be teams that would lose? It's poor leadership, whether it's the coach, whether it's the leadership that's on the field, whether it's the GM. You can see where the leadership, and you see it when coaches or certain players leave, how much that changes the whole team culture. Who knows who Ray Kroc is? Okay. What is Ray Kroc famous for?
McDonald's.
Did he create McDonald's? He bought into McDonald's. And a lot of people don't know that. I'm sorry?
He believed in it, so he bought in.
He believed in it and he bought in. A lot of people don't realize that Ray Kroc wasn't the one that came up with McDonald's. It was two brothers, Maurice and Dick, who decided, they were going into theater or something and then decided to buy into the restaurants. And they were their biggest thing was to get food out to customers within 30 seconds. Now, don't we wish fast food ran like that now? I don't know what happened to that vision, but they ended up creating this assembly line, and they wanted to franchise McDonald's. Do you know they went years, and they only sold a handful of McDonald's? A handful. And out of those handful, only a few opened up. And it wasn't until Ray Kroc, who is famous for his milkshake machine, I believe. Is that correct? Am I making stuff up? When he bought into it, he actually was able to franchise McDonald's because he believed in it. He bought into it. He had other people believe in it. So the two kids, their leadership lid went here. Ray Kroc was able to bring McDonald's up to here, right? I mean, another example of their mindset, when someone bought the franchise, I believe in New York somewhere, they called the McDonald brothers and said, hey, I want to keep the name McDonald's. I want to open my store up and name it McDonald's. The brothers was like, why would you do that? McDonald's doesn't mean anything up in New York. When Ray Kroc bought it, he's like, yes, let's all the McDonald's be McDonald's. Because it was within the name. The name did mean something. So that's just some examples. Anytime you look at anything within a team, you can apply this leadership, the law of the lid, into that, on how well people are doing based on who's in charge or who's part of that team even. So some ways to raise your lid is to recognize experience is automatic, but insight, you actually have to look back at look at it and have insight in your experiences. We can go day by day by day going through a routine and get nothing out of it, right? You want to be able to sit back, reflect, and contemplate. Take your time. A lot of successful people will tell you they wake up early in the morning, plan out their day, and before going to bed, think about how their day went and how it could have been better. Also, learning from your mistakes. How many in here have never made a mistake in their life? No one. We're still making mistakes, aren't we? Rhonda and I, our mentor, told us a story. He had an employee who made $1 million mistake. Could you guys imagine making $1 million mistake?
We wouldn't be sitting.
We wouldn't be sitting here. So when this guy made this $1 million mistake, what do you think happened when he was called into the boss's office? If you made $1 million mistake and your boss calls you in the office, how do you think the conversation's going to go?
You'll do a lot of listening.
You'll do a lot of listening. Did someone say fire him? I know if I made $1 million mistake and I got called into the office, I would have already clocked out, cleaned out my office, called my husband, and you can need to pick up another job, consolidate some loans or something. We would have been making some plans before I even walked into the office. But that isn't what happened. He calls him in the office, and they have a conversation. And in that conversation, he tells the gentleman, now I know there's probably disciplinary action. He didn't say there wasn't any disciplinary action. But he tells him, the chances of me firing you and bringing someone else in and them making a $1 million mistake is much larger than for me to keep you. You learn from your mistakes and not do it again. Now, don't go saying, Jessica said, because if you make $1 million mistake at ASA, I cannot guarantee you will not be fired. But that was the situation there. Some other ways to raise your lid. is to recognize the importance of leadership. It's really important to be able to be a good leader, and we'll talk about what a good leader looks like a little later. That opportunities grow and exist every day. All your experiences that you have, you can learn from them. All the mistakes that you've made, you can learn from them. Step out of your comfort zone. Growth happens outside of your comfort zone. How many of you get stuck into, or even have a chance for a promotion, but you don't want it because you're comfortable where you are right now? Have you ever been in that situation? You want to be able to step out of your comfort zone, do things new, do things that's going to help you grow. Be around people that challenge you. Research states that you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. I mean, who you spend the most time with?
My family.
Yeah. The 5 people, you're the average of the 5 people you're around the most. And if that's just your family, and they're not challenge you in a good way, then you do have to go out and find other people that will challenge you. If those are your friends. Now, I don't see anybody pulling out their phone to unfriend people on Facebook yet, but you do want to reevaluate the people that you're hanging out with. You want people that are going to challenge you in a good way and not bring you down with them. You want to be intentional. That means set out each day. It may be a goal, like, hey, I want to get better today in such and such. Learn some of the laws. I want to get better in my effectiveness with leadership. How am I going to do that? And plan it out. So being intentional is very important. And then investing in yourself. You hear the word invest and you think, oh, I got to put money out there. You don't. Like Stacey mentioned earlier, books, reading books. You can borrow a book from someone. You don't have to spend any money. There's a lot of knowledge in books. Signing up for classes. Spending time with people that are going to challenge you. Taking people out to lunch that's going to give you some, you guys can have good dialogue and you can see that personal growth, that professional growth. There's so many different things that you can do to actually invest in yourself. Well, we talk about, hey, have better leadership, raise that lid. But a lot of times these things and a lot of other things stop us from doing that. You guys look at that list. Is there anything on there that says you can think of something that you've been wanting to do for a long time, but something here or something else has stopped you from doing it? I'll give you an example. About a year ago, I was asked to go on a TV show. I did not want to do it. Did not want to do it. I said no. They said I'm not going to accept no for an answer. I still said no. They were making plans for me to be on this TV show, right? So I said, my response via email was, I tell everyone else they need to step out of their comfort zone for growth. I need to start doing what I'm telling other people to do. So I said, okay. I did not want to be on TV. Look, he can tell you I didn't even want to be Mike. I'm like, there's no telling what was going to come out of my mouth. But he promised to edit, so we're good. But I did not want to be on this TV show. And they kept saying, yeah, you can do it, you can do it. I was in denial. Denial's there. Because I thought, for some reason, by the time we get there, there's going to be a good reason that I do not have to do this TV show. Lack of confidence and lack of knowledge. I didn't know what to expect. This is the first time being on a TV show. I didn't know what they were going to ask me. It made me nervous. I don't like talking in front of people. I really don't. So all of this had me really nervous. I was scared. I was this close to praying, yes, praying, that I would wake up with no voice the day of the show. That is how bad it was. So I ended up going on the show. And you know how they tell you, to be around people that challenge you. I took Rhonda along with me, and she was in the control room. And I knew once I was done that she would give me good feedback, honest feedback. So I said, go ahead, Rhonda, let me have it. She said, well, you had this non-Jessica look a lot. I was like, what is this non-Jessica look? Well, your head was tilted, forehead wrinkled, which I notice happens all the time now, but forehead wrinkled, and what else? Was it just head tilted, forehead wrinkled? And I said, I looked confused. She said, well, yeah. So the other thing I told myself was I was not going to watch this show. I was not going to watch it. It's over. I'm not going to watch it. I don't want to see how dumb I looked or sound. So I end up turning it on anyway. The very first facial expression when they're introducing me was like, I can't even make it. It was forehead wrinkled, head tilted, looking confused. As they're introducing me, I had to stop looking at that. But I can say that I am glad that I did it. I can say that I was on a TV show and I challenged myself and that, I stepped out of my comfort zone. So when I come to you guys and say, hey, growth happens outside your comfort zone, I can really say it really does. Now I've been asked to come back again and I said no. One time's enough. To help with the lid lifter, to be a lid lifter, there's 3 qualities that you really want to make sure that you have. One is that your words are encouraging, that you encourage, the encouragement is actually expressed. 3 or 4 years ago, I coached a 3rd and 4th grade girls basketball team, and I had a young lady on the team that could easily start for the 7th and 8th graders. The other girls, it was dribble, pick up, dribble, pick up. No, you can't do that in basketball. So I'm explaining to them, and when they're able to just dribble 3 times in a row without picking the ball up or traveling, I'm like, yes, good job, giving them all kind of encouragement. The young lady that I said was really good and could play for the 7th and 8th grade team, I didn't realize until mid-season that I haven't been giving her the same attention and encouragement as the other ladies. Because I already expected, she knew what she was doing. But this is still a 9, 10-year-old girl. She still needed encouragement. But even as a licensed clinical social worker, I did not recognize that I still need to recognize her when she did things well, even when she didn't do things well. How often do you guys find yourself not encouraging everyone or encouraging those that don't do as well when they do average? Well, one of the grandfather of Chick-fil-A, what's his name? Truett. Kathy Truett? Truett Kathy. He says if they're breathing, they need encouragement. We all could use encouragement, couldn't we? Sometimes when we're exceeding those abilities and exceeding those expectations, we don't get that pat on the back all the time. But it feels good every once in a while to get that pat on the back, doesn't it? So make sure that you're doing that for each other. I mean, it doesn't have to be the ones that are struggling. It should be everyone receiving encouraging words. Other ways to lift others' lids, through your actions. The commitment of backing up your words. If you say you're going to do something, do it. It's just as simple as that. And if you're unable to do it, you need to go back and tell that person. Because how often do you have people that say, I'm going to do such and such? They don't do it, and you never hear back from them. At least go back to them and tell them, hey, sorry I was unable to do this. Their sacrifice, the selflessness that allows another leader to go the next level. How many in here supervise people? Are you comfortable supervising someone and helping them get the promotion over you? Sometimes that's a huge gut check for people. I've been working with them for however many years. How dare they get a better promotion than me? Get the promotion before me? That's actually a great pat on the back for you. If you're able to take people that you supervise and make them better so that they can go to that next level, you have accomplished what you should as a supervisor. Now, some ways to apply the law of the lid. You want to rate your leadership. You want to ask others about your people skills, how you do at planning, strategic thinking, vision, and results. Those are areas that you, to be able to say, where's my leadership lid? Where is it? And asking other people where they would actually rate you there. We're going to go to the law of solid ground. Trust is the foundation of leadership. Does anyone disagree with that? Trust is the foundation of leadership. A lot of people don't realize that trust goes both ways. If someone is asking you to trust them, it is your responsibility to find out what you're trusting them with. How you're going to trust them. Any expectations, have those questions answered. Because if that trust is violated, you have a part in that as well. There's too many times that, someone says, trust me, and you continue to trust them. At some point, those fingers of responsibility have to come back to you. We had someone in one of our trainings that said, I have a cousin that steals all the time. And they say they get better, so I trust them. They continue to steal, but they continue to trust them. At what point do you stop trusting someone? There's a personal preference in that. When the actions don't demonstrate they're trustworthy. So yeah, this young lady was trying to tell me how, because it's family, they should continue to trust them. I explained to her, I would trust that they'll continue to steal my stuff, so I'm going to put it up so I don't tempt them. That's how I'm going to help them get better, right? So, trust is a very valuable thing. Very, very valuable thing. And we should treat it that way. So here's a quote. People will tolerate honest mistakes, but if you violate their trust, you will find it very difficult to ever regain their confidence. That is one reason that you need to treat trust as your most precious asset. You may fool your boss, but you can never fool your colleagues or subordinates. That's a huge one. I've been working with people, I've worked with people that their boss thought that they were just the greatest employees ever. But as a coworker, we know the truth, don't we? Yes, no, you guys don't want to admit it. All right, I understand. But being able to make sure that you continue to build that trust, not only with your boss, but also with your colleagues, is very important, and your subordinates. So to build trust, you want competence. If you do not know the answer, don't make up something. Have you guys ever worked for someone that made up things when they did not know it because they did not want to look incompetent? Have you? Rhonda had 2 bosses like that, 2 separate bosses. I really thought those were the only 2 people in the world. And so we started doing that training. I started asking people. There's a lot of people out there that don't want to look incompetent, so they make up things. Then we find out the real answer, so it never makes sense to me. It's okay to say, I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but let's go find the answer together. Or go check with someone else. Go check with so-and-so. They can tell you the answer. You can lead people to the answer without making up things because it makes it very difficult. And plus, nowadays, if you try to make up something, those millennials, they're on their phone about to Google anyway, right? They're going to prove you wrong anyway. So don't make it up. Building connection. Relationship is very important. Building relationships with your employees, with your coworkers, with your bosses, it goes both ways. Getting to know people, it's going to build trust. And then character. Having good character is very, very important. You guys want to be known for things that are positive, right? So having good character is important, and it communicates consistency. Even when you're sick, you should still be consistent. not necessarily come to work, but be consistent. People can tell you when they come to you to ask you about something, that is usually the same response, that they're usually going to get the same person. I've had a boss where I will walk in and I'm like, this might not be the day that I talk to her or him. I was about to talk about somebody, but I won't go there. But one of the things, there's times that I've walked into, talk to someone and be like, I don't think they took their meds today. Let's talk about this a different time. But those are things, you want to be consistent. So when people come to you and talk to you, most likely they already know what to expect, right? They already know what the answer is going to be half the time when you're consistent as well. So it's very important to be consistent and be the same person each time. Potential. Good character shows potential. But if you have poor character, it's going to limit your potential. Can you think of anybody in the world today that has very poor character and is limiting their potential? Well, you guys, I always have sports analogies. I always go with Terrell Owens. Anybody familiar with Terrell Owens? He was a football player, NFL, very, very talented. Not one NFL team will touch him because he causes too many problems in the locker room, on the field, and in the media, at home, and wherever else you want to put him. So having that poor character limits the potential that you may have. It doesn't matter how good of a leader you are. If your character is kind of shady, people don't want to deal with it. It also communicates respect. And someone said that earlier, as a leader, you have to have respect. If you don't have character within, then you're not going to have that respect on the outside. It's very important to look at your character. People will forgive mistakes based on ability, but won't trust someone who has slips of character. And if you're looking to build your character and you think, where's my character at now? You want to make sure that you actually use integrity, be honest with people. Don't tell people. Sometimes we speak without thinking. So we have these ideas and we say these ideas that involve someone else, and then next thing you know, we're changing things up and it doesn't look true. You go from one thing to the other. Remember when I said, hey, if you're not going to follow through, go back and communicate that? You don't communicate it. You have this person believing this person over here believing this, and then your mind has changed to something else. So you want to make sure that you have that integrity, that you have things that are completely thought out before sharing it. You want to be yourself. You can't be someone else. People recognize when you try to be someone else, or when you try to do things that's just not in your character. And then the self-discipline. Sometimes that's the hardest part, having that self-discipline and doing things that are right. Now, as a supervisor, there's things that you have the right to do, but it's not always the right thing to do. Does that make sense? So you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing, and that helps build character. Now, if you're asking yourself, how trustworthy am I? These are some things that you can ask people. And again, this can be here at ASA. It can be at home in your house. It can be at your church, in your community. Ask this: how open are other people with you? So the people, your coworkers, how open are they with you? The people that you supervise, how open are they with you? How open are your kids with you? Do they openly share opinions with you, even the negative ones? If you have a yes man that's sitting there and everything that you've said, and they're like, yes, that's a great idea, that's a great idea. They don't trust you enough to say, Bob, that you might want to try something different. Or what about this? Because everyone in this room is smarter than just one person in this room, right? So you want different opinions from other people. And if you're not trustworthy, people aren't going to give you those opinions. or their ideas? Do they give you bad news as readily as good news? Oh, I would march right to my boss's office every time something comes up, good or bad. I wanted to be the first to share it before anyone else got to her. Do they let you know what's going on in their areas of responsibility? These are great questions to ask yourself about the people you supervise, about the people you lead, about the people in your home, in your community, so forth. So now, if you found that you violated trust, what's the first thing you need to do?
Apologize.
Apologize. Because even before you go to fix it, you want to first take responsibility and apologize for it, right? So you want to apologize, make amends, a restitution, and then you have to commit to work to re-earning their trust. Sometimes that's the biggest thing, because you're no longer on your timeline. You're on theirs. Because once trust is violated, it's up to them to decide when they are going to trust you again. It takes very little time to earn trust, but as soon as you break it, it can take a long time to re-earn it. So it's something to take note of. Like the quote said earlier, use trust as your most valuable asset.
So the law of respect says that people naturally follow other people or leaders who are stronger than themselves. That makes sense, right? But that's the law of the respect. But I'm going to ask you this. Let's say the HR, who are my HR people in here? Let's say the HR says, hey, meet your new manager. And this is what your manager looks like. And you get to decide whether or not you're going to follow this person. One person, slightly over 5 feet tall, it's a woman. She couldn't read or write. Her clothes are coarse and torn. And no, we're not talking about me. Her 2 front teeth are missing. And then there's this rumor going around on the Twitter and the Facebook that in the middle of the night, she just up and left her husband when she was 29 years old. We love a good scandal, don't we? But who just leave their husband in the middle of the night if they not on reality television? She has a really erratic employment history. Like, seriously? Like, she works for a few months and then she doesn't, and then she comes back and works again. And on top of everything else, she was known to fall asleep in the middle of a conversation. Hello, meet your new manager. Now, when Jessica talked about leader and those aspects of leadership, is that somebody you're thinking, this person could have really good influence over me? No?
I'd kind of look at HR kind of crazy.
You'd be like, HR, what you thinking? Like, you start questioning your character and integrity. Like, is HR like, what are they doing at break time? Like, who are they hanging out with? Why do they think this is somebody we should follow? Right? Mm-hmm. But get this. More than 300 people actually did follow her. Bells are about to start going off. Though she was free, she risked her life to save others. She was fearless. Stacy just had a light bulb moment, didn't you, Stacy? She came to be called Moses because not only was she a good leader, but they believed that she would lead folks to the promised land. She was the essence of the law of respect. Anybody have an idea who this 5-foot snag of 2 nodding off in the middle of a conversation woman is? Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman was a true leader. And I like to say this when we do this part. We don't just bring Harriet Tubman up in February, right? Because when I was a kid, that's the only time I heard about Harriet Tubman. And I certainly didn't know she was like falling asleep in the middle of things. That would have been pretty interesting. That would have kept me compelled in 2nd grade when they were teaching me these things. But this is the example of a true leader. This is someone who was stronger than most in terms of her leadership ability and skills. But if you looked at her physical manifestation and you looked at the outside characteristics, there's no way in the world you would have said, at first sight, this is a proven leader. But she was. And the thing that we know about Harriet Tubman is, all those things we talked about with the teeth missing and the narcolepsy, the erratic employment history makes sense, right? The leaving her husband in the middle of the night, that took some leadership skills types things because, Harriet was born a slave. Her husband was a free man. And so one day, Harriet decided, I don't really like this life I'm living. Remember Jessica said, surround yourself with people who are going to encourage and push you. So I'd imagine what had happened was, and I forgot to mention that sometimes I make up words and I would say ain't a lot just because it's to the chagrin of my stepmother who tried to get it out of me in the 6th grade. But I would imagine that this is what happened. Somebody else had the experience, right? Somebody tried to tell you that ain't a word, but ain't is a word because it's in, I like double negatives and double positives too. Ain't. But anyway, she put herself she was in a situation where she decided this was probably not the life she wanted to lead, right? And so she probably had this conversation, and though Jessica, mentioned how old I was, I'm not this old, so I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit of what I think this conversation went like. I think Harriet probably went to her husband and said, John, you know what? This ain't no way to live. I want out of here. And you know what John said? John probably said, oh, Harriet, cut all that foolishness. We got a good life here. Remember, he was free. He wasn't real free, but he was free. She wasn't. So she hatched a plan. Like, okay, I need to figure out a way to do that. One of these, we talk about strategy. Leaders are visionaries, right? She saw that there could be more to her life. So she hatched a plan. It took her about 4 years to figure it out. So that's how she ended up getting all famous on the social media. They're talking about she became a trending topic on the Twitter or something. But then there was the whole narcolepsy thing, right? So when she was a child, this is another example of her leadership and how she didn't go along with what was expected of her. When she was probably 14 years old, she was in a storehouse, and there was a slave who was attempting to run away. And the slave master said to Harriet, hey, stop that slave. And Harriet did one of these. Again, I wasn't there, so I'm just pretending. My name Bennett, ain't in it. Of course, he became angry because of that, threw a 2-pound weight, knocked her out. She almost died behind that. That probably explains the teeth and the narcolepsy and all of that. But despite those challenges that she had, right? She had challenges for a really long time. She still became someone that other people followed. Now, if Harriet Tubman has said, I don't want to live this life, I want to go to freedom, I'm going to chart my course to freedom, that would have been cool. We've been like, kudos, Harriet, right? But she did what true leaders do. And what's that? She went back and she brought people with her repeatedly. The reason that we talk about leadership and leadership ability is because the more leadership ability that you have, the more likely you are to recognize it in other people. And when Jessica talks about how important it is to increase your leadership ability, not just for at work, but also at home, this is another one of those areas where it applies. Now, I'm not going to get into anybody's personal business, but sometimes we attract some folks to us who are not us worthy, right? But the reality of the situation is that we don't attract who we want, we attract who we are, right? Which should make some of you shudder. I don't know none of you, and I don't know none of your personal business, but I'd imagine, because there are a lot of people in this room, chances are there's someone in here going, oh, I've got some work to do. Because the people in my circle, the people that I'm attracting to me are not the type of people that I want to keep in that circle, right? So how do leaders go about gaining respect? One way is simple. Some folks are just born with it. If anyone wanted to challenge that notion, I would ask them if they've ever had a child who attended daycare. Anybody ever put a kid in daycare? Isn't that the most difficult thing to do? You leave your baby with these people that you don't know, and you're like, oh. But if you put your child in daycare, particularly a 2-year-old, by the time they start walking around and getting mobile and they're able to have a half a sentence, what you know is that there is another 2-year-old at that place who is running the joint. You know that, right? I remember my oldest daughter, she's 22 now. So 20 years ago, I put her in daycare. There was a baby there named Khadijah that was running things. Khadijah was a born leader. Khadijah ain't read one book. She don't know John Maxwell. She's never been to a Skylight leadership training, but that kid was she was leading all the other charges. If she stuck a fork in the outlet, guess what everybody else was doing? Because it was Khadijah. But the thing we do know is that everybody can develop it, right? So I don't want to say because you're like, oh, wait, I wasn't running things when I was 2 years old in daycare. So it's kind of over for me, right? No, everybody can develop it. We talked about that. But there is a potential pitfall to being a born leader. What do you think that is? Potential pitfalls to being a born leader.
You're being influenced by the people around you
Oh, you're being influenced by the people around you?
in a negative way.
In a negative way? There are a lot of those born leaders who grew up to be like super cocky leaders, right? They're like, we call them megalomaniacs. Mm-hmm. I could think of a few megalomaniacs, but we said we wouldn't go talk about these types of things. Any other potential pitfalls? There's a lot of eyes on you. People are looking at you. Yeah, because I really need to check out Khadijah, see where she's at. Right? Anything else? Some of you don't look old enough to have had this experience yet, but for those of you who have, you're going to be able to probably relate to this. Anybody been to their 20th or 25th year reunion, high school reunion?
That's gonna admit it.
That's gonna admit it? Look, I was there, bought the t-shirt and went, wow. What I found was, when you go to that high school reunion, you know that kid that was running things from the time they was 2 years old? And they were the captain of the this and the spokesman of the that, and they were homecoming king and queen and all of that. What you find when you go to that reunion is that they peaked in the 12th grade. Because you go to the reunion, you go, wait a minute, I see the picture on your yearbook. No, that can't be you. That can't be you. Right? Anybody have that experience? Where the coolest kid who was running everything in high school, you're just like, really? That's why I tell my children, look, whoever people are in high school, don't get too attached to that, because they do serious 180s. I was a band geek. Look at me now. I'm just saying. I spun my cymbals with the best of them, but honey, nobody saw this coming. At least not me. But again, you have a potential pitfall. And one of those things is that when you've been running things since you were 2 years old, it's easy to believe that you don't have to do anything else. You don't have to continuously and consistently invest in yourself. I don't care where you're at on that lid. I don't care if on all 21 of those things you got a perfect 9. Because guess what? That list is an end-all, be-all. We have things that we need to consistently invest in ourselves as leaders. Because if Harriet Tubman had stopped when she got to a 6, there's a whole lot of us that probably wouldn't be here. Right? But the potential pitfall. Now, Jessica likes to use sports analogies. I don't know nothing about sports. Okay, I know a little bit about sports, but that's only because of what she talks about. But I like music and TV and the Twitter and the Facebook type stuff, you know, the social media things. And when I think about people who are born with talent, I think about this little kid. Oh, can't remember his name. But he was a kid. He was in a band with his brothers, and they were really famous. And Michael Jackson, that's that kid I'm talking about, right? Michael Jackson. Anybody see the audition reel that they did for Berry Gordy? Like, Berry Gordy was out of the country somewhere, and he's like, oh, just somebody record these kids, and I'll take a look at them. Anybody seen this video? You see this video, you know Michael got it, because you know Michael was like this tall, but he was killing it. He was like, baby, baby, baby. These ain't the right shoes for it, and this ain't the right carpet, but you get my drift, right? He was singing, and it was just like, wow, this kid's got it. And although Joe was a bit of a hard man to work with, and he probably had some influence on how good Michael became when he was 9 years old, there was just so much of that was in him. But despite Michael Jackson being born with that much talent, what did he do every day up until the day he died? He did a lot of self-destructing. That was later on, you know, probably the last 15 years. What was that? That man practiced. He danced everywhere. You know, he was real shy about it. He'd be like, oh, you want me to dance, but I don't really know. Okay, ooh. Potential pitfall. If Michael Jackson had not done that, because some of us are thinking, why is Michael Jackson practicing every day? Anybody think that? Why does Oprah read all those books? Why do they do all of that? I tell you, if Michael Jackson hadn't practiced every day, the way that we'd be talking about Michael Jackson is we'd probably be saying stuff like, hey, you remember that little kid who used to know how to dance really well on Jackson Street? I wonder what happened to him. Oh, he's working over at the steel mill. Just like I'm wondering, what the world happened to Khadijah? She should really be president by now. But because he had that work ethic, and I really hate to say this because back in 1982, 83, I was like the biggest Michael Jackson fan ever. Every inch of my wall was covered with something. And he was really big in the tabloids and the Enquirer. I didn't care what they said. If it had his picture on it, I was buying it. It was going on my wall. So I feel somewhat like I'm betraying my inner child when I say this, but I'm going to say this. Dare I say, there was likely another kid 3 doors down who had more talent than Michael Jackson. There's likely a kid right now who has more talent than Michael Jackson, who was born with that level of talent, but they don't have the commitment and the discipline and the work ethic to work in it the way that he did to become who he became. Does that make sense? Because we all want to be like Michael Jackson status, right? Without the self-destructive drugs and wacky plastic surgery and whatnot. Yeah, we could do without that. All right, so that's one way people are born with. The other way that people get respect for others is how they treat other people. Have you ever had this experience? Have you ever gone to lunch with somebody you thought was really cool? Like, I do that a lot. Like, oh, you seem like such fun, good people. We should do lunch. What's your name? Yeah, you. Missy? All right, Missy. I'm going to pick on Missy because I'm assuming this isn't Missy. If this is Missy, this is purely coincidental. So Missy and I go to lunch, and I'm like, oh, Missy is awesome. We have so much in common. We drive the same car. I can't wait. We're going to be lifelong friends, Missy and I. And then they bring her steak. How do you like your steak, Missy? Well, dang it, Missy. You just ruined. How, if you were to be a steak eater, Missy, how would you eat your steak? Well. She would eat well, right? And it comes in and she cuts into the steak and the steak basically starts mooing. And Missy lose her mind. Give me the manager. I can't believe what an idiot you are. I told you exactly how I wanted my steak. Missy, you wouldn't do anything like that, would you? Because it would be really awkward if she would, for me to use her as an example. You ever had that experience with somebody? And what's the first thing that you think?
This will be the last time that I would.
I made a mistake. This is the last time I'm going with you.
Absolutely.
Like, oh my gosh. Because then we start to lose what? We lose respect for them.
Right.
We look at how people treat other people. They say, you know, the surest measure of character is how you treat someone who can't do anything for you. Now, I don't know why anybody would berate a waitress or a waiter. They handle precious cargo as far as I'm concerned, so I'm leaving them alone. But it's along those same lines. Like, how are we treating other people? And I look at that the same way when I walk into the Target store. If I go to Target and there's a manager who is letting an employee have it, I lose all sorts of respect for that manager. There's a way to treat people. I don't care what it is that they've done or how you think they've wronged you. So here's a quote from John Maxwell. When people respect you as a person, they admire you. When people respect you as a friend, they love you. When people respect you as a leader, they follow you. Now, any good leader wants to be followed, right? And I'm not just saying followed so you can brag about how many people are following you on the Twitter. We only have about 276, so if y'all don't mind pulling out your phone and following us there, I would appreciate it, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the reason you want people to follow you is so that you can be like the Harriet, right? So you can lead them to the promised land because you know you've invested so much in you and your development that it would be a shame not to share it. That's why leaders want followers. It's not for the power grab. And oh, it's so easy to be about the power grab. We have a lot of power grabbers, right? None in this room. I'm saying we have a lot of power grabbers. All right, so another way for a leader to get respect is by showing courage. Good leaders do what's right even at the risk of failure. Any company that's been around has had times when they've had to make really tough decisions. And sometimes those decisions don't feel really good, and you have to really have courage and strength and conviction to be able to pull it off. But you have to do it for the greater good. And the reason that that's important is that it gives your followers hope. When they know that you're willing to make those tough decisions, even when it scares the bejeebus out of you, even at the risk of it being wrong, because there's a disadvantage in playing it safe, right? There's a disadvantage in playing it safe. We can't grow in that safety ground. Now, another way is success. Success is very attractive. People are naturally drawn to it, and people respect the accomplishments of others. Now, I'm gonna tell you this. I don't keep up with the Kardashians, but I can respect the heck out of that Kris Kardashian's hustle. Tell me that woman is not a marketing genius. Every member of their household has a show and $1 million home. But you know what? Can't argue with that track record. I don't have to respect the woman to respect the hustle. I love for Chris to have a conversation with the Skylight leadership. I want a TV show and a clothesline and some shoes and stuff. I want to get paid to just show up places and be like, I'm sick of talking. I'm not, I just. All right, another way that leaders get respect is through loyalty. When leaders stick with the team, when they remain loyal during tough times, when they look out for their followers, even when it hurts them, oh, your folks will follow you through the gates of hell. The reason I know is because the last job that Jessica and I worked at, we talked about how tumultuous it was the last few years, right? But the last few months, it was really rough. And we had a leader, our executive director, who said about 3 months before stuff really started hitting the fan, she said, ladies, it's not looking good. I would not blame any of you if you do what you have to do for what's right for your family. This place is going to do whatever it's going to do. Take care of yourselves. Do you think we went? Why not?
You were loyal?
We were loyal because she was loyal. We weren't just blindly loyal to her. That's like the little kid going, catch me, just fall and I'll catch you. It was a process of reciprocity, but she started it. We saw the things that she went to bat for us about. And because of that, we were like, we in it to the end. To the point that it got to the place where it personally hurt us, right? But that's how you build loyalty. Sometimes we wait for other people to prove how loyal they are to us, and then we'll bestow our loyalty to you. It has to be the other way around. You have to invest in people first. And another thing is to add value to people, right? Adding value to people means that before Jessica and I would do any of the stuff that we do, one of the things that we do as social workers, we go out and we do a lot of pro bono stuff, right? We do a lot of advising, coaching, mentoring people because we want to add value. It's part of our nature. But when you add value to other people, they respect that because they know that your main objective is not to take. Every person I've ever supervised, when they came to me, I wanted to make sure 6 months later, they looked different. They had grown in their development under my tutelage. And if they hadn't, I took that kind of personal. Like, what? Obviously, you don't want to be a leader. And not everybody wants to. So let's keep that in perspective. But people appreciate when you add value to them instead of take. No one wants to go to work every day and be referred to or looked upon as just a warm body. Anyone ever hear that said, I just need some warm bodies up in here? Who wants to be a warm body? Don't you want to be, hey, stimulate my mind. I want to be able to stimulate yours. Nobody wants to be that. So you make sure you're adding value to other people. Now, there's Jessica talked about reflecting and contemplating and about being intentional. We have to be very intentional. You have another assessment in there. I'm going to allow you guys to do that later on, but I'm going to tell you, part of that assessment, it allows you to evaluate yourself on those 6 areas I just talked about, right, for respect. It's the respect assessment. You evaluate yourself from a scale of 1 to 10. And let's say that at the born leader thing, you go, I'm clearly not a born leader because no one's really naturally following me, so I'm probably about a 2. But I'd really like to be an 8. Maybe I'm not a born leader, but I want to look like one, right? Then write yourself a little note about what it is that you can do to get you to the place that you want to be, and then commit to doing it. Because contrary to popular belief, it's not enough to just write stuff down. We actually have to act and do stuff. I know, right? Boo. I wish I could just get all my dreams by writing them down. I'd be 5'10" and 130 pounds, but that's neither here nor there. And then ask the people who are closest to you, what is it that they respect about you? Caveat here is don't ask people for their opinions if you are not ready to hear the truth, because you are setting them up and you are setting yourself up. What do you respect about me? Let's talk about that. Then, if you're really, really brave, ask them which areas you need to grow in. Show them that list. Are any of you familiar with the Johari window? So a Johari window, we like to work in quadrants, as people who are all personality type things. So a Johari window, I think somebody knows Johari window. You know Johari window?
Oh, yeah.
You know Joe and Harry? That's really their names, right? I looked it up. Joe and Harry are the guys. And so with the Johari window, there's that part that there's something that I know about me and you know about me. When I walked into here, there were some things that immediately you knew about me, right? You knew that I was probably shorter than I intended to be because I wear really tall shoes. I was a black woman, and I'm probably a little older than I look, because I am. Right? But then there's this area over here called the unknown. This unknown quadrant are things that you don't know about me, and I don't know about me. No, you don't know. Yeah, you know about me, and I don't know about me. I should have boned up on my Johari, right? You know these things about me, but I don't. So let's just say that in the middle of this presentation, I snuck out and went to the bathroom, and then I came back, and I had some toilet paper on my shoe. You ever notice how people with toilet paper on their shoe never know they have toilet paper on their shoe? That's part of that quadrant. Some of us live in that place where we don't know we have toilet paper on our shoe. And the only way that we know is if somebody else tells us. So that's why you have to be brave enough to ask these questions. And you have to be receptive enough to hear the answers. Otherwise, you will never know you have toilet paper on your shoe. I mean, eventually you might know, but by then it's too late. You've already walked through half the restaurant. Don't ask me how I know that either. So one measure of leadership is the caliber of people who choose to follow you. Again, we use leadership as like this interchangeable term. Oh, the leader of this, the leader of that. Leadership is a lot more than that. If the people who are following you are a bunch of knuckleheads, you are probably a knucklehead leader. The next law is the law of explosive growth. And I really like the law of explosive growth. It's probably one of my favorites because the law of explosive growth says to add growth, lead followers, but to multiply, lead leaders. Now, you know what I like about this place is I looked up your mission statement. And as part of your mission statement, it talks about the people. Anybody know what your mission statement says? Most folks who work at places don't know what the mission statement says because it's like really long and it's like convoluted, but we need to feel the mission statement. One of the things your mission statement said is, our people will be the most important element in the accomplishment of our mission. That's part of the grand statement, right? Our people. That talks about explosive growth. You want to invest in your people so that you can grow and achieve your goals. Along those lines, if you develop yourself, say you guys come to this and you're like, oh, this was a really cool training. It was the best. Ooh, I learned so much. And then you walk out this door and never say anything to anybody about it, or you don't do anything with it, then congratulations on being a success. You just got some good information. That's like Harriet Tubman figuring out how to get where she needed to go and just go in there and chilling, right? Now, if you develop a team, because anybody can develop a team, If you develop a team, then your organization can experience growth. But if you develop leaders, your organization can experience explosive growth. That's what this is about, right? That's why you have a program like this, where you bring people into this type of setting. You say, hey, we want to pour into you, because we know the more that we pour into you, the better you are when you get out here. Not just professionally. How many of you have gone through this program and gone, you know what, wow, that stuff I learned there, I could use it at home too. I could use it in my personal life. And when you invest in people like that, you see the returns. And part of it is through explosive growth. Now, this is one of my favorite quotes. It's by Philip of Macedonia. And Philip of Macedonia was Alexander the Great's stepfather. And he said, a team of deer led by a lion is more to be feared than a team of lion led by a deer. So it's really important who you have up front, right, as a leader. Part of the goal here is that we want to develop a team of lions led by a lion. That's how you get explosive growth. Right? You are unstoppable then. But to do that, it takes a different focus. You can't just go about work and what you're doing the same way that you've been doing it, right? You have to change things up, because we've been in those places where they're not looking to focus on people. So here are some of the things that you need to do with that different focus. Leaders who attract followers, and you'll know them, they need to be needed. You know anybody who hoards information? And they would only give it to you out in little nuggets, just enough so you have to do what? Come back and keep asking. We all know somebody like that, the leader who needs to be needed, who desires to be needed. That's not real leadership, right? They're attracting followers. They're not looking to develop people. But when you have a leader who develops leaders, they want to be succeeded. They want to walk into a room, they want to look at their team and go, by the time I leave, whether it's 30 years from now, whether it's tomorrow, I want to really struggle with who am I going to pick to replace me, not because there's not an adequate replacement, but because so many people are qualified. How many times do you work someplace where there's a management position that comes open and all the hiring is from the outside? We're bringing new people in. Now, I don't have a problem with new people coming in, because there have been times we've all been a new person coming in. But really, if you are really investing in your team, that should be the exception more so than the rule. Leaders who attract followers, they develop the bottom 20%. Jessica talked about the bottom 20% getting the most attention, right? Because sometimes we need to just fix that. If we could fix that, then we'd be okay. Who do you think the leaders who are developing leaders focus on? The top 20. Why do they focus on the top 20%? If you invest in the top 20%, again, remember, I've invested in myself as a leader. And I'm a pretty darn good leader. If I know that I've invested these skills, this energy, these resources, this time in myself, I should be invested in my top 20%. Because if I invest in my top 20%, who are they going to help me with? They're going to help you with the bottom 80. But what happens is we spend a lot of time investing in the bottom 20%. And when you invest in the bottom 20%, who do they help you with? Nobody. They can't help themselves. But isn't that what we do? If we're developing followers, that's what we stay. We have to be intentional and conscious about developing leaders and focus in the right places. When leaders attract followers, they focus on weakness. But when you focus on developing leaders, you focus on strengths. Now, Jessica became quite notorious. Jessica fired a lot of people. Anybody here ever have to fire somebody? If you need a how-to, if you need a tutorial, if y'all need any of that, talk to that lady right there. She's fired a lot of people. I kid you not, we walked into a training once. There was probably 30 people in the room, and 6 of the folks in that room had been people that Jessica had fired. And so she says to me, don't say that thing about I fire a lot of people. Don't say that. I was like, I'm trying to get home too. But guess what happened? Guess what all 6 of those people did? And guess what every person except for one person that she fired has done? They thanked her. Now, that one person, they weren't too happy. They didn't thank her at all. And the 6 people at that training, they came up and they spoke to her. I said, hey, how you doing, Jessica? It's nice to see you. Because what she did throughout their process, as she was looking to develop her leaders, she focused on their strengths. And sometimes their strength was not matched appropriately to the job that they were in. And it became a situation where this really isn't the place for you. And if you really want to be happy, you should probably do this. But again, we have to focus on the strengths. And sometimes we try to save people, right? We try to save people in positions and places and things that they shouldn't be in because, oh, it's Christmas and oh, they have children and oh, but come on now. Anybody ever work a job that you were horrible at? Were you happy? And if anybody's ever been fired, sometimes by the time you get fired, you're like, what took you so long? Thank you, right? People with a different focus, leaders who attract followers treat everybody the same. Everybody has the same vacation package. Everybody has the same vacation days. Everybody has the same training dollars. You guys get training dollars allocated to you? All right, so I'm going to use that as an example. Because leaders who develop leaders treat individuals differently. So let's say that you have training dollars allocated. Each person has them allocated evenly. And we've been in places like that. And so let's say that if you treat everybody the same, everybody has their $5,000 training dollars, and let's say that myself and what's your name? Nick and I are going to a training in Las Vegas, Nevada. Right? We're going to a training, and we're going to learn some really great stuff. But let's say Nick goes to the training, and Nick is very studious, because I predict he's that type, right? He's a type that's he takes great notes, and then he comes in. Nick is the guy, he's going to stay at every single seminar. He's going to take great notes, and when he comes back, and his boss asks him, hey, how'd it go? Nick's going to say, it went so well. I'd love to present some of the information I learned. I'd love to do that. And let's say Rhonda went out there, right? And Rhonda was like, oh, there's a seminar all day, but Mariah Carey playing next door. I think I want to see Mariah. It's the once in a lifetime thing. Her voice has to be going. She's been singing like that for 25 years now. I'm gonna go see Mariah Carey. I'm gonna sign my name before I leave so they think I was here. And then when I come back, my boss says, hey Rhonda, how was the training? And I go, it was awesome. It was amazing. It was the best training ever. Then when it's time to go to the next conference, Nick and I are even, right? Because we've been treated the same way. And let's say that Nick has run out of money because he's really about investing in himself, but I still have money. So now I'm going to Honolulu. You see where I'm going with this? Because who should really get the training funds? Nick, the person who's going to bring it back and reinvest it in the company. Leaders who attract followers, they spend time with others. They just hang out. Hey, let's go chill, let's go hang out, let's go shoot the stuff. But leaders who are developing leaders, they invest time in others. They sit and they want to know, what is it you want to do? Where is it you want to be? How can I help you to get to where you're at? It becomes about that. Leaders who attract followers grow by addition, and leaders who develop leaders grow by multiplication. And dare I say, sometimes leaders who attract followers, they grow by subtraction. I know, that's an oxymoron, right? You can't grow and subtract at the same time. But have you ever worked with somebody who you thought, if this person wasn't here, I can get 3 times the work done? You guys familiar with the Container Store? The CEO at the Container Store is a retail establishment. And basically, if you work there, you're on the floor as an employee, you make a really good salary. They pay their on-the-floor retail associates, the same type of folks who are working at Walmart, Sears, JCPenney's, wherever. They make $50,000. You want to know why they make $50,000? Because the president of the Container Store has figured something out. He figured out that one strong leader is worth 3 followers. He gets 1 leader, he pays them double what you would normally pay. He gets 3 times the work. Genius! But there's a challenge to leading leaders. One is leaders are hard to find. There's a significant leadership gap in this country. For whatever reason, we don't really invest in ourselves as leaders like we should. Maybe we're tired. Maybe we don't think that it's going to be worth it, but there's not a lot of leadership development. I know in companies, when things start to get rough at companies, the first 2 things to go are marketing and leadership. That's typically one of the first 2 things. Ask me how I know that. Leaders are hard to gather, particularly if you're looking at someone and you go in and you're like, oh, you're a 6, and you want to gather somebody who's an 8, I'm not coming. And leaders are hard to keep. So when it comes to applying the law of explosive growth, you want to develop yourself. Again, you can't give that which you do not have. So you want to develop yourself so you can develop your team, but make a focused, conscientious effort on developing your leaders. Now, this, I'm going to go on record as saying, is my favorite law, the law of legacy. The law of legacy says that a leader's lasting value is measured by succession. Who are you able to pass the torch to? We're about to get a little dark here. As sure as we're sitting here, Stacy was like, what? What kind of training is this? As sure as we are sitting here living, we are also simultaneously dying. And the reality of the world is that we didn't come here to stay, right? None of us are here to stay. Jessica's grandmama trying to. She's 105 years old. She ain't going nowhere, right? But at a point, we're going to have an end to this thing we call life. And legacy is really about, at the end of that, we're going to have this one sentence that people are going to say. You ever been to a funeral and heard people talk about the recently departed? There's typically a theme, right? At my mother's funeral, I heard a whole bunch of times, oh, she was my best friend. She was my best friend, like 30 times. I was like, dang, why everybody think she their friend? She only had one best friend, that was me, duh. But we will all have that one sentence. And if you've been to a funeral, you know that theme. But the thing is that most of the time we stumble upon that. We're not real intentional about it. So we have to really pick that sentence that we want to have right now. Because the truth of the matter is, the only thing that walks back from the tomb with the mourners and refuses to be buried is the character of the man. This is true. What a man is survives him. It can never be buried. Basically what that says is there's no do-overs. There's no, wow, that's what people are saying at my funeral? I want to go back and correct that. So when it comes to developing your leadership legacy, here's some things you can do. One, decide what do you want your legacy to be? When it's time for you to leave your position, your department, this company, when it's time for you to leave, what do you want people to say about you? When it's time for you to leave and depart this life, then decide, is there anything you need to change right now so that becomes your sentence? Because some of us have a little correcting to do, right? A little fine tweaking to get to where we want to. And then who will you invest in to carry on your legacy? Because leadership is about influence. And if there's nobody following you, if you profess to be a leader, there's nobody following you, you're just taking a walk. All right, got a couple questions for you. How are you investing in yourself? What are you doing at this current moment to invest in yourself? One of the things you can say is, hey, you know what? I show up to things like this. Try to read, I meditate in the morning, I do whatever. How are you investing in your team? Because it's not enough for you to come to stuff like this, right? You need to go back and share it with your team. There's a reason you were picked to participate in this. So how are you investing in your team? How that you have because you develop yourself as a leader? And then how can we help? So I know we covered a whole lot of stuff, but if you get home and you go, wow, there was that thing they said, or I wish I could know more about this, drop us an email. Our contact information is here. If you want a copy of the presentation, we don't have a problem sharing resources. If you need a referral for a book, if you need a whatever, let us know. That's what we're in this for.